AI and art, it's kind of fascinating because I think we've reached a point in society where things that were inaccessible to ever deliberate on are now becoming our everyday ponderance. For example, I think a lot of people, when they thought about flying, for instance, was an inconceivable notion, but now people have the ability to travel all the time. What doesn't bother people is not exactly the advancements, but the idea that something else is becoming obsolete in the process of doing so, which is um, just the advancements of technology, as like someone like Andrew Yang used to talk about, and how society is continuously doing so. It's not going to be an argument of principle, or it's going to be more of an argument of practicality when it comes to businesses and manufacturing jobs. They're just going to look at what is the most effective way, what is most cost efficient, and things of that nature. For me, AI is kind of a fascinating one, particularly because our machinations of the mind have always been considered a holistically unique domain. Artistry, music, even the way I speak and I inflect upon the microphone is something that considered holistically unique upon my own. And sure, there are ventriloquists, there are people who have the ability to mimic my intonations. That was a human being that was doing this. The replication of software, AI doing that, was perceived as something more of a Tom Clancy, Splinter Cell, or something of a 2077 cyberpunk. But interesting enough, when you think about Cyberpunk 2077, it's not based in the future so far apart that you couldn't even feasibly believe it to be a case. Rather, Cyberpunk 2020 is a game that's placed on a timeline that we could end up in eventually on our deathbeds perceiving as reality itself. So I believe that it speaks about how more immediate AI is nowadays. And people might point to things of the nature of perfection, such as multiple fingers, limbs, extremities, what have you. Um, but that is only the criticisms of a system that is still in its infancy, meaning that refinement is only going to get more exceptional as the system learns and is being taught by others. For me, AI can be a force for unimaginable good in the sense that it can help us um, figure out in a more expedient fashion certain diseases, like eliminating certain trials and errors we had to go through. A model sheet that has to run through an extensive amount of tests to ensure that this vial will be the particular one that ensures hair growth will be chopped down in time. It makes all these things exceptional in the way that we can further enhance and enrich society with the imperfections that are often plaguing us. However, in terms of the creative field, I am very apprehensive about that. I am somebody who, at the very least, would like to consider himself someone who hones his art and someone who is passionate about what he creates. Um, the accessibility of art to be in the hands of everyone, and now the accessibility to be taught this art is certainly something that has come with the internet and everyone making art to some degree or not. But with AI art, there's an automation to it all to the point where eventually I believe that it will be similar or at the very least on par with some people's art to the point where the fascination and intrigue will probably be more or less about the person and individual in question and the thought processes, the traumas, the adventures, the personhood that is about that will be more what we'll delve into than anything else because um, one of the things that is being teased out here about personhood is that AI, artificial intelligence, is a replicating system. But a lot of what we are as human beings is that replication, is that looking upon something else and learning and understanding it through our own replication, our own individualism is adding our own eccentricities to that, but at the same time, that is our unique personhood that is a part of that art. Now we are looking at something that is able to do that and possibly give that little eccentricities without necessarily needing to have that experience and or that passion to it. And while again, as I reiterated prior to this, there is imperfections, I think it's going to be a bit disheartening in the world of artistry and expressions of that, where people have become so diligently creative and passionate about something to have it replicated in shorter periods of time without the diligent nature of looking towards what it means to even create art in that regard. I think as a craftsmanship, you're always going to want to enjoy that part of the art. And sure, there are still going to be people who, even if that becomes the case and it becomes so ubiquitous that even studios find it advantageous to do so, I still would find myself looking towards those who are still like handcrafted to some regard, despite the fact that I am a digital artist to some regard. As snobbish as that sounds. I think if anything, I hope that's a succinctly way to take away from what I've said about AI art and delving into like the human or personhood of like humanity in a sense. It's going to be interesting to see how it will affect other facets of life because now people are making romance bots, they're making all these things. And if not anything else, I would say look at Stanley Complex. Some movies of those natures really delve into what it means to be a person or what is personhood when transhumanism is at the precipice of humanity and how we deal with a digital age. That's my thoughts on the subject matter.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. And for me, one, Cyberpunk 2077, I don't get how they made the games like they're trying to portray it as like it was a bad thing, but like it'd be pretty fucking base to live in some futuristic world where I could have like, super like technology shit like that, like at my disposal. Like it's funny because you could go to like vendors and parlors for like $300, get like some cybernetic implant in your arm, or like no, not bucks, credits, and just like be able to like mess people up and stuff, like have all kinds of things. Like
I
yeah, it
mean,
has its drawbacks, but that sounds kind of fucking base. You can't lie. Like you wouldn't want to be
it's
Johnny Silverhand.
it's like it's fascinating. Well, I don't think that Cyberpunk, if we're talking about the Netflix series, wasn't necessarily saying that the advancements were the problem, but the addiction that people have towards things and the idea of giving into compulsions.
It's
Pornography,
funny you bring that up
TikTok,
too. Like,
um,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
30-second videos, pornography, TikTok, 30-second videos, all these things are very like divisive for modern day society, and people often like chastise these devices as the problem and the issue here. But it's kind of the addiction we have towards the immediate endorphin rush that we get from these things, and I think that the resilience to say no or to refrain from something becomes very harder when things of this nature are becoming more ubiquitous in society, and the ease of getting it is simply as far away as a click. So that's why I usually think that they were referring to when they were talking about cyberpunk and the dangers of technology.
Oh yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that too, because paleo libertarianism kind of answers and solves the solution of cyberpunk, where you have society which has completely compressed. What's it? Sorry, um, forwarded, if you will, and completed like technology. They don't have to worry about that issue as heavy. Their main concern is like what you said, degeneracy, addiction, drugs, all like cesspool stuff like that. Like paleo libertarianism comes in as like, hey, economics, that's a green light, you're doing good, but like when it comes to like morality and like that system, that's also important. An example in real life, if you will, is like Japan has a pretty solid economy on the world scale, and they're notable for being really prestigious, and that's because they're on a volcanic island. They don't have natural resources like coal or anything like that they could just like have low labor people to mine. The issue with that though is that it forced them to like sink or swim. Like you have to go to college, you have to get a degree because you can't afford to do a labor job if there's no labor jobs available. And the downside of this is like, good job, you got a booming economy, but you also have like number one depression, like in like any developed country, least amount of births, least amount of marriage, most amount of suicide, all these negative things basically to the point where the government's like, hey, you guys need to like, have sex, have kids because we're about to like drop off really hard because the older generation shouldn't be twice as big as the young one. And that's like a scary thought to have because that's like a very big whiplash effect, if you will. But that's just something interesting I thought of. But in regards to AI, though, going back onto that, my main concern of AI, I used to be extremely anti AI. Like, a Grug Smash computer, Grug Smash screen, but I later like changed it up a bit because one, I had access to like, the new Bing AI thing, and it's been having a blast like making whatever I want. Like I made Warhammer 40K Ultramarine